Today's podcast is brought to you by sweet, sweet traditional intercourse. I'm talking straight up D and V. It's what got me here.
Down with Joe DeRosa.
Hey folks, here we go with another episode of Down with Joe DeRosa. One guest, one topic, 1 hour. And today we talk about pornography. Porn certainly isn't the hot button issue it once was back in the 80s and 90s. Remember all that controversy? Some people, some very, very sick people, wanted porn banned, barred, bashed, and banished. I know, it's hard to believe that in this age where every household is equipped with 1 to 3 free porn dispensers, but there was actually a time when authority figures attempted to keep this stuff from us. Now, I'm a huge supporter of porn, and I say that with all sincerity, not humor. I'm not one of these tongue-in-cheek jerk-offs. It's tough to say you want to talk seriously about porn, then use the phrases tongue-in-cheek and jerk-off. But I'm not one of these assholes. Another tough choice of words. I'm going to go ahead and just skip saying pussy, but I'm not a guy that says he stands behind, this is impossible. Look, I support porn all the time, not just when I'm masturbating. I think, as I say in my act, that these people put their ass on the line for us in every meaning of that phrase. And I think it goes severely underappreciated. Never in the history of entertainment has work been taken so for granted since porn. These folks risk disease, discrimination, and disheartenment, all for the sake of us exercising those inner perverted demons. The product is there for the taking, never questioning, never judging, always providing, and sometimes even teaching us a thing or two. Yet most of us treat porn like a booty call. We want to use it when we're horny, then never take it to dinner, or even say thank you. We let porn stars into the mainstream, but only on our own terms. My hat's off to HBO for being one of the few outlets that actually showcases these performers in ways outside of them fucking on camera. But even then, as is what seems to always be the case, the programs are sex-related. Is that merely a result of professionals being utilized for their expertise? Or is it us refusing to see these actors as fully realized artists? Is free streaming pornography in excess proof that our sexual acceptance has widened, or is it just a sign that we could care less about this demographic, is overused and underpaid? I don't know, but I do know this. I support the porn star. I watch their work, and I rally for them to receive greater awards, recognition, and all-around support. I mean that. Perhaps my guest feels the same. I don't know. We're going to talk about it. Here's a guy that, when I first saw him perform back in 2007, it was comedic love at first sight. He's consistently cracked me up since then, and continues to make a respected name for himself in the world of comedy. His credits include his own Comedy Central half-hour special, as well as having been an indecision correspondent for them during the 2012 election. He's a regular on VH1's popular Best Week Ever, and can be seen, so please go see him, performing frequently in New York, Los Angeles, or occasionally in your hometown. He's Jared Logan. Please welcome him. What's up, buddy?
Hey, Joe. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being here, man. What's going on?
I was just looking up pornography on Wikipedia.
Oh, yeah?
And it says it could be pornography may use a variety of media, including books, magazines, postcards. Have you ever gotten a pornographic postcard?
I have not. No.
That sounds like something that you would get if you were like a World War II soldier from your buddy. Was it photos? Okay.
Right.
Sculpture?
Uh-huh.
Have you ever jerked off to a sculpture?
No, but I bet you they did back in like the 1500s. That was all they could do.
You want to go over to the museum tonight? We're gonna bring out some hot stuff.
Yeah.
Some hot stuff's gonna be on display. Drawing, okay. Painting, okay. Animation, sure. Sound recording, just listening.
Just listening. I once did masturbate to just audio of porn because I couldn't get the picture in, because it was when, like, I think I was like about 16 at the time, and we didn't have like Cinemax.
Right, but
like,
you had the scrambled Cinemax.
Yeah, we had the scrambled, and there was barely a picture, but I could hear the sex sounds, and I masturbated to that. So yeah,
you can totally do that, right? Especially if they're talking a lot or something.
Yeah. That'd be a good podcast. Just porn sounds.
Just making porn sounds for strange men to jerk off to.
Yeah.
Wow, yeah, and you would love the fan base you'd get from it. film, video, and video games. And I can't really think of a pornographic video game. Have you ever played a pornographic video game?
Well, I remember games like Leisure Suit Larry being deemed as pornographic.
But it really wasn't, right? It was
No.
more like softcore. And did it ever actually show nudity?
I can't remember if it did or not, but I remember it was like that thing that like the uncles all talked about at the family party. Like, have you seen this Leisure Suit Larry?
Yeah.
And as a kid, you were like, oh, I got to get my hands on that. But, you know, when you finally saw it, you were like, this is it? Like, I have to actually, it was like it always felt like that game King's Quest.
Yeah. Again, it was like kind of like it was like a corny, like 1950s sexuality, kind of like a, dirty jokes on the back of the Friars Club, or the Rotary Club,
Right, yeah.
kind of a sexuality to Leisure Suit Larry. But I don't think it ever actually. I mean, it definitely didn't show any kind of sex acts.
I would define it as randy, not pornographic.
Exactly, it was Randy,
They should have called him Randy. Why didn't they do that?
or perhaps it was erotica, which is distinguished from pornography. But the portrayal of sexuality with high art aspirations, focusing also on feelings and emotions, while pornography involves depiction of the acts in a sensational manner, the entire focus is on the physical act.
That's like that Madonna book that came out, right?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
I got it.
Sex. She's got like a leather phallus in her mouth. It's being worn by a woman with like a horse mask.
Yeah, again, was so excited as a kid to see that book, and when I finally got my hands on it, I was just like, I can't masturbate to this.
So
This is
maybe
stupid.
really the difference between pornography and erotica is whether or not Joe can masturbate to it.
I would define it by that. Can I masturbate to it? Then
Yeah.
it's not porn.
Right. If I masturbate to it, I guess I just made it into pornography, didn't I?
Yeah, I guess so. So you could, like, if you can pull off one to like an episode of Roseanne where Aunt Jackie is scantily dressed,
Yeah.
that makes it pornography.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, for you it is, right? Because
I guess
people
so.
have different types of sexualities.
Well, that's what's so interesting to me about like the porn argument is like it's not so clearly, obviously, like straight up and down pornography. It can be defined as being like, okay, that's porn. But so often pornography or things being pornographic is defined by the other person's opinion of it, how it makes them feel.
Right.
Well, that made me feel dirty, so it's pornographic.
Yeah.
Well, no, you just have a weird fucking head. You know what I mean? You look at things in a strange way. And just because you found this cartoon too edgy or too racy and it gave you a boner at a time you didn't want one, it doesn't mean it's fucking pornographic.
Well, the country was settled by Puritans, right?
I think so.
Yeah, so the first people in America were the Puritans in the 1600s that landed at Plymouth Rock, the Pilgrims. Right?
Yeah.
And they were they were like more like almost like fundamentalist Muslims
Yes.
than they were Christians because they were extraordinarily strict religious people. And
Yeah.
sexuality was very, very, very taboo in their culture.
Yeah.
So, because they started our country, it really kind of got really deep in the blood of the country.
Right.
And so sexuality in general is very hidden in our country, where in other places it's a little more open, like Italy or Brazil or someplace like that.
Right.
And you know what I think?
Well, and that's where most of the art, like the quote pornographic art, comes from.
Yes,
You know?
erotic.
Yeah,
art.
it's all European painters and stuff like that. You know?
Yeah. So, but what I was going to say is the end result of being settled by Puritans is like, I don't know if I told you this story, but my dad used to let us watch horror movies when we were kids, when we were just like 11 and 9. And he would let us watch people get chainsaw murdered, have their heads decapitated, guts
Right.
pulled out. But every horror movie from the 80s and 90s had like a sex scene.
Yeah.
And so when breasts were visible, we had to leave the room. We could watch people get murdered with power drills.
Listen,
We weren't allowed to look at breasts.
leave the room until you hear the chainsaw again.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Then you can come back in.
No, it would be literally like a woman would be having sex, and we could just hear it in the other room. Audio. And then you'd hear her go, ah! And you hear like a chainsaw, and my dad would be like, okay, come back in.
Well, I'm glad you brought up the sex scenes thing, because this is what's so strange about me. Or one thing I think that's strange about me is I am completely open-minded when it comes to discussing sex to seeing sex in a pornographic sense, watching porn, discussing porn, all those things, discussing my own sexual behaviors. However, if you and I are watching a movie and there's just a regular sex scene, it makes me very uncomfortable. Very. Whereas if
Why?
I don't know. If you brought me to a computer right now and you were like, dude, look at this porn clip I just saw, I'd be like, okay. And you show it to me and I go, oh, all right. And then I would give you my opinion on it. But if you and I are just sitting over there watching, I don't know, fucking Basic Instinct or something like that.
Really?
And well, that's a bad example because that's what it's going to be. But if we're watching just some, I don't know, Wes Anderson movie and there's suddenly a sex scene in the middle of it,
Yeah.
it makes me very uncomfortable.
Well, I think one thing that's interesting is that there really aren't very many sex scenes in films anymore, except for like B movies and straight to video kind of, straight to your red box kind of films.
Right.
Straight to Netflix.
Yeah.
Like, but in the movie theater, I don't think you see very much nudity or sexual content anymore.
You don't see a ton.
As much as you did,
Well, and it always made me uncomfortable, even before there was a dearth of it. But I think here's why, because I'm not expecting it. If I can define something within sexual, hard sexual boundaries, and I go, this is a sex thing, then my brain is ready to go, okay, we're going to look at a sex thing right now. However, if we're watching another thing that's another type of entertainment, and then suddenly there's a sex thing dropped into our laps,
yeah,
that's what makes me uncomfortable about it.
But someone might have an argument with you that what you're really doing, that separation, is maybe a little bit unhealthy. What you're saying
Sure.
is like
Yeah.
you're falling into that Puritan trap, that Puritan, origin of our country, where it's like, no, sex is over here, and my life is over here.
Right.
And in other places, they don't see it that way. It's a normal, healthy part of our daily existence.
Well, yeah, when I was in Amsterdam, I had a completely different take on sex. I thought I was going to get uncomfortable. We went to a sex show, me and a bunch of comedians. It was me, Jay Okerson, I believe Rachel Feinstein, and Marina Franklin, I think. It was the four of us. We were in Amsterdam. And Jay's like, we're in Amsterdam. We got to go to a sex show. You have to do this.
Yeah.
And we were all kind of like, I don't know. We don't know if we want to go there. Jay's like, just trust me. It's fun. So we went, and I was on edge. I was like, this feels weird. And the second I got in there, I was immediately put at ease. They gave everybody free shots of Jägermeister. And then people had sex on stage, and it was like a sports bar environment. People were cheering.
That sounds horrible.
It's not.
People had sex on stage.
They had sex on stage. At the very end, it was strippers.
Men and women, women and women, men and men.
It was all solo strippers doing weird tricks with their vaginas, like shooting ping pong balls.
Okay,
out
so
of
people
stuff.
weren't actually having
At the end,
intercourse.
people had actual intercourse. A man and a woman had actual sex on stage at the very end. But it didn't feel weird because it was that European take on it where it was like, hey, we're here. This is fun. Who cares? It didn't even feel like being in a strip club. I can't explain it. And when I say sports bar, that's
terrifying.
It's not a good analogy. People
The
weren't
game was on behind them.
people weren't angry, like yelling at each other, like But it just felt open and fun and free. It felt like you were watching like clowns do.
Can you imagine having sex in a sports bar and then like you're in the middle of having sex and then you just look down in the audience and there's just a guy watching the game that's going on the screen nearby instead of you having sexual intercourse?
That would be upsetting.
When you'd be like, hey, I'm having sex up here. Do you mind?
I'm boning over here.
Will you please, while I'm boning, will you watch, please?
The other thing that made the sex show feel like a sports bar was there was hot wings. I'm kidding.
Okay. Oh, God. I was about to go. I don't know if I could have sex in a room with a heavy hot wing smell.
You're eating jalapeno poppers. They're just some guy jizzing all over the stage. They didn't finish the sex, too. That was the other thing. The guy didn't. I don't know if the girl did.
No money shot?
No money shot. There was no male money shot. So that made it a little, I guess maybe a little more palatable. I got pulled on stage during that, though.
What happened? During the sex?
Not during the sex part, but one of the strippers brought me on stage and did a thing where she put a marker, like a Sharpie pen, in her vagina and wrote on my chest, like using the pen that was in her vagina.
What did she write?
She wrote the end.
I'm a victim of human trafficking. Please send help.
Yeah.
They have me here against my will.
Yeah. They're watching us right now. Yeah. Please play it cool. No,
I am from Kansas. Please get me home.
She wrote the end, and like she wrote on me, and everybody cheered, and then stood me up, and it said the end, and she bowed. It was kind of charming in a weird way.
No, I mean, that's a lovely carnival trick. Yes.
Yes.
That's good circus techniques.
But here's the other thing. Have you ever been to Amsterdam?
No.
Here's the other thing. There are sexual sculptures or whatever. Like, there's a river. I can't remember the name of it. But there's, like, dicks, like, lining the river, like, at one part. Like, stone dicks. And it's not weird. And I can't explain why it's not weird. It's just so out in the... it's like the same thing with the weed thing over there. You think to yourself, it's going to be so crazy when we can smoke weed in public. Whatever.
Right.
And then you get there, and immediately you're like, oh, this is... you smoke weed. It's whatever. It's what everybody does.
Yeah.
It's just totally just... You're at ease with it. It's fine. Like, people go, oh, I'd bug out. I'd freak out. I'm like, dude, I freak out sometimes when I smoke weed. You would not freak out there. You just don't. It's so okay.
What I think is like, when pornography was not legal in this country for a long time, right? Wasn't it? Like outlawed? So you force it underground.
Right.
And now it's not underground anymore. Certainly it's accessible to anybody, but we still have the attitude that it should be underground. Because at one point it was shameful to our culture, and it was, But
that's what I think is so weird about the way how accessible porn is these days. I really was thinking about this morning when I was writing the intro, and I was like, man, we're more accepting of it because it's everywhere now. It's free. You just get it wherever you want. And then I was like, no, I think that actually might be more indicative that we're not accepting of it. We're just like, we don't give a shit about these people. Let them be exploited and not make any money off of their crap. Because if it was music or movies or television, there would be stink to the high fucking heavens about it being given away for free and being pirated and whatever. I've never seen anybody go to bat for porn
stars. The people that produce it are the ones giving it away for free.
No.
The people
That's not true.
Who is giving it away for free? Who is putting it on these websites for free consumption?
Well, if you find there's some, like, if you look at maybe a Vivid, one of the, which I would say is like the sort of Warner Brothers of porn.
Sure.
The major label porn, if you will. Mm-hmm. Their clips are much harder to find.
Would you say Brazzers is sort of the Paramount Pictures?
Brazzers, I would say Brazzers. I look at Brazzers more like a Tarantino.
More of a Focus Features?
It's indie, but it makes money. Mainstream indie kind of thing.
For the college crowd,
Yeah, so, I mean, and Brazzers, too, is one of those things where, like, there's a whole bunch of different sites working together like an artist collective. So it's like, here's Robert Rodriguez's site, and here's the Tarantino site. And, the Rodriguez site is a little more like exploitation type stuff. It's a little bloodier. The Tarantino, is a little talkier over here, So I think, like, I don't know. I talk about this in my act. Like, I'm amazed that, like, we don't go to bat for these people. You're almost appalled these days at the suggestion of purchasing porn. People go, I bought a porn DVD, and you scoff. You go, are you an idiot? What are you doing? It's like, no, that guy's doing the right thing.
Well, wait,
people
you
have to
my
make
question,
money.
Though? Who's giving it away for free? Why can I access it in a second? Millions. I mean, I'd say it's literally millions of free videos.
I think it's absolutely being look, I might be wrong, but from the look of the sites and the disorganization of the sites in finding clips of featuring certain actors or certain whatever, I think it's just something that's pirated and it's just out there.
Okay,
and
but
these sites have found a loophole to jump through where they go, hey, people if you ever read like the legal agreement of a porn site that you don't have to join, like a free porn site, it's very legal speak. Hey, don't look at us. It's very like, hey, as far as we know, everything on here is legal. It's not our fault. We can't control all of it. It's a lot of that kind of talk.
Yeah.
So I think people put it up there, and it's just like YouTube. I mean, look, you could go on YouTube and say, I can look up 100 different clips of The Tonight Show. All those clips weren't put out there by The Tonight Show.
Yeah.
Some of them were released for advertising purposes. Many of them were pirated.
It just seems like it's just so rampant with
Of course.
pornography as opposed to Tonight Show clips or whatever movies.
Well, sure. Well,
mainstream movies rather.
There are the companies that'll get out there and make sure you can't find any of their stuff. Just like I would call it the Saturday Night Live approach. You look at, or Comedy Central is another good example. You look for their clips on YouTube and stuff, you can't find them.
You
can't find them. Because they incessantly search for the stuff that's not supposed to be out there and get it pulled down. Other people have a more lax approach to it. And I think with porn, you're seeing two things. You're seeing a lax approach being met with culture that is absolutely not going to defend these people or try to help them. And I think that's what's happening. You know what I mean?
Now, let me ask you this. We're talking about porn stars being exploited. What do you think of the idea that a lot of pornographic actors and actresses were molested or sexually abused growing up?
Well, I think that that's true. I don't think that that's not true.
That's true, right?
But I also think that there are probably just as many that weren't, and we don't get to hear those stories. It's like that old, remember that old Bill Hicks bit where he said, "Where's the positive drug stories?"
Yeah.
Everything is like this guy took this drug and killed people or whatever it was, or robbed a bank or whatever, and he goes, "Where's the one where it's like I understood and I was enlightened. I understood that we are all one being and all that stuff." That to me is the same thing with the porn thing. You don't hear the other story, and I've sought out interviews like online. I've searched for interviews with porn girls that I like a lot.
But I think that you do hear positive porn stories or people trying to put a positive spin on it.
You have to find it, though, is my point.
Porn actors and actresses
Right.
go on Stern and they go, I'm in charge of my body.
Right. But
I do what I like.
Sure.
Were you molested? I was molested. Yeah, really big time. For decades. And now we come really with this to my problem with porn.
Well, before you tell your problem, I do want to say this. You have to dig for the testimonials, the positive testimonials.
Yeah.
I know there are the ones out there that say I was molested, but I've sought out, as I said online, interviews with porn actresses that I really like and found interviews with them where they say, I wasn't molested and I wasn't forced into this. I want to do this. I like to do. Nina Hartley is a great example. She's been doing adult films since she was, I think she started when she was like 20 or 21. She's now, I think, 60 and still doing it. She's married. She's very much in love with her husband. They have an open thing, like I guess they swing or something. I don't know what the parameters of their relationship is, but it's some sort of progressively sexual relationship they have. But she does how-to videos. She does sexual seminars, and I don't mean like at the AVN award convention. I mean like she tours doing legitimate not that the AVNs aren't legitimate. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Outside of the porn world, she does sexual seminars. She's very, very outspoken and a huge proponent and figurehead in the like sexual acceptance and progression movement. So she's a great example. That all being said, when's the last time you saw Nina Hartley on a real talk show? You know what I mean?
But then, I mean, you're even having trouble talking about it. I mean, you just corrected yourself a little bit because it's just, we totally separate the two worlds.
That's what I'm saying.
There's the underworld of pornography, and then there's the quote unquote real world or legitimate world or what have you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I mean, but a lot of these people have sexual abuse in their past.
Sure, but so do a lot of
am I
comedians.
supposed to base it on the?
So do a lot of comedians.
Okay.
A lot of comedians.
So maybe I think you're implying the point. Why would I make the distinction? You know, they're both are just using their damage to create art or channeling it in a positive way.
Theoretically,
but I mean, is porn really regulated? I mean, really? I mean,
yes.
Very.
You mean like with disease and stuff like that?
Yeah.
Yes, there is a system. In fact, I just listened to a podcast. My brain is terrible. I can't remember her name, but I like her a lot. I think she's really awesomely hot and good at what she does. But anyway, she's got a podcast, and she spoke to that very point that there was a scare recently where the business got shut down for a minute because there was an AIDS scare or an HIV scare. And she said, here's the thing. Everybody acts like, why doesn't this happen more often? And she goes, this doesn't happen. The only time this happens is when people that are under contract do shit they're not supposed to do, like go to Brazil and fuck hookers without condoms on and stuff like that. She's like, that's when this happens. If you follow the rules and the way this whole regulatory thing has been set up, this doesn't happen.
Who was the regulatory agency?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I guess there's like a union, like that's in Amsterdam and in places like that, it's run by the government. There's like government testing.
Which is what it should be in America.
Absolutely, it should be.
And
great.
Yeah.
They also have, like, I remember watching the Ron Jeremy porno documentary about him called Porn Star, which was great.
Yeah, I've seen that.
Yeah, and that came out 12 years ago or something,
Sure.
Maybe even longer. That had a thing in it where he went and got half-hour results. They had, like, testing for, like, people back then in the adult industry where they could get tested and get results in, like, 30 minutes. They didn't have that for us back then. They have it now. They don't even have it now, really. It still takes it.
No, they're not going to do that for you, but the porn stars have access to this special service.
Yeah, so there is some, I guess through the union, some agency set up to regulate all this stuff.
Well, we're a little limited because we didn't research here, but it's whatever. Okay, so we don't know anything about the regulatory agency, but we know it's not the government.
No, well, we know that for sure, yeah.
Okay, so can I tell more problems I have with porn?
Yeah.
Okay. So, it seems to me
But I need to know this before you say this next part.
Sure.
Do you watch and masturbate to porn?
Well, I'm trying to stop.
You're trying to stop. Okay, but you have done it. I just need to know that moving
I've
forward.
done it very, very often for a very long time.
Okay. Yeah, because I feel like that frames.
But I've
what you're about to
recently
say.
started to change my attitude toward it.
Right. What?
Okay. So let me. What's my next problem? Okay, so don't you think it affects kind of your view of women?
No.
Not at all.
No.
It does not affect your view of women.
No.
Okay. Well,
It
let
can.
me tell you how I think
It
it
can,
does.
but it doesn't.
It can, but it doesn't.
I mean-
Okay, so like you think about like how most people are not going to be in a relationship where they're spanking people and pouring hot wax all over them and having like some sort of like dominant submissive, like that's like a fantasy, right?
Right.
And if you're just taking that into your head all the time and that becomes kind of what your sex life revolves around. But then on the other hand, this guy, he works at fucking Best Buy and he's married to just some regular, nice woman who's perfectly willing to have sex with him. There's a disparity between his internal life and his outer life in a weird way. His expectations and his the way he's turned on is kind of affected by it.
Yeah, there is, but I think that's a byproduct of us not accepting sexual behaviors into our regular lives.
Yeah.
I think in a world where this stuff was more on the table and more accepted, that guy wouldn't have married a woman that isn't into the stuff he's into. But instead, he buys into this.
Or maybe she would be into it in that kind of world.
Or maybe she'd be into it or open to it. And look, maybe she is open to it and into it. He's just afraid to bridge the conversation with her.
But you hear all the time, like, these stories about porn addiction.
Yeah.
I caught my husband with a porn
Absolutely
addiction.
possible.
And these guys are, like, going crazy, downloading hundreds of pictures to their hard drives.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of that's because they don't know how to use computers. But I don't know, how do I get the VJ? I'm just pressing buttons here.
Right.
It's just it's really odd to me because it seems like something is definitely very out of balance, right?
Yeah, but my response to that is, I've done cocaine before. I'm not a guy buying 8 balls twice a week.
Right.
There are addicts and there are non-addicts, and that guy would have been addicted to anything that he got too into.
Right.
And that's all there is to it. Like, for every guy doing that, God almighty, I know so many married people at this point, and I don't think I can name one that doesn't look at porn in some capacity.
Yeah.
And out of all of them, I've witnessed one story of somebody having that kind of reaction to pornography.
Yeah.
Out of all my friends, I can't name one guy, single friends or not married, but in relationship, whatever it is. I can't name one guy that I would say is like that.
Right.
It's
that
just,
has a pornography addiction or a sex addiction.
Yeah.
But don't you think people hide that?
Well, maybe they do. But I'd also
I think
say
they hide it very, very carefully sometimes.
But I'd also say out of every guy I know that drinks and every guy I know that experiments with drugs or both, the amount of times I've met a tried and true alcoholic or drug addict are incredibly few and far between. It's just addict personality. It's not as common as we want to think it is.
Right.
And I think that that is a tool that has been exploited by the anti-porn brigade. They want to get there and go, well, it corrupts the youth. And does it corrupt the youth? Because every fucking kid I have ever known in my life, from the nerdiest nerd to the coolest of the cool, looked at Penthouse and Playboy magazines as a kid. Every single one of us.
Sure.
Every single one of us snooped through, my dad's out of town. You went over to your buddy's house and you snooped through the drawers and everything and saw outlandish shit at 11 years old that you weren't supposed to see at 11 years old.
Yeah.
I remember the first time I saw Insertion. I was like 11. I was like, oh my God.
Yeah, probably me too. I was like 11 years old.
It didn't turn me into a freak.
No.
You know?
And I want you to know I agree with you. Like, I don't think that it turns you into a freak necessarily. And I pretty much agree with what you're saying about, we have these freedoms and, you choose whether to become obsessed with something or addicted to something. It doesn't have some power over you if you don't let it, right?
Right. But I'll say this to tie it into what we were talking about a few moments ago. I think, excuse me, the damning of pornography is what has led to it becoming something more potentially addicting to a person. In other words, it's been damned, it's been cast aside. Therefore, it's been exploited, it's been used, it's been pirated. Therefore, it's out there in abundance
It's
for
the
free.
forbidden fruit.
Yeah, all the time. But it's out there in just fucking heaping mounds.
Well,
and then so some guy that gets a little bit of like, I'm going to go crazy, can just go buck shit. Whereas a guy that could get addicted to purchasing music or downloading music couldn't do that without having to go, I can't do this. It's costing me too much money.
Yeah.
There would have to be, there's a thing that stops you. And there's no factor that stops somebody from becoming a porn addict. There's nothing standing in your way.
Let me tell you what stops me from when I was consuming porn. What stops me from consuming a ridiculous amount of porn? One, my girlfriend, because when I'm around her a lot, I just have sex with my girlfriend.
Well, that's good.
And two, being busy.
Right.
Like, if you're busy, you're too busy.
Right.
So that brings me to my final, like, a porn objection, which is, it's like, I know about eating too much, right? I know a lot about that, right?
I believe you.
And you gotta think about balance, right?
Right.
So porn is just always available all the time. It's right there. It's right in front of your face. And you just do it. And when you masturbate, let's be honest, you watch the fucking movie. Sometimes you spend 15 minutes. Sometimes you spend half an hour. Sometimes you sit there for an hour just trying to find the thing that's gonna like tickle your fancy that day, right? Now an hour's gone.
Right.
Now you're fucking touching yourself in your fucking bed, wiping up. It's not an active activity. It's not like nobody ever wipes up from jerking off and then goes, all right, time to get that garden started. Like you don't, it's a waste of your time. It's a waste of energy. What would you do with all that energy if you weren't spending it that way?
I disagree with that. With that.
Why?
Because
I think that's a pretty good argument against.
I subscribe to the Wolf of Wall Street thing. Where,
which is?
I mean, I don't masturbate at work, which is what Matthew McConaughey says he does in Wolf of Wall Street.
Yeah.
But I agree with the philosophy of him saying, like, utilize masturbation to keep your head straight. And I totally agree with that. I don't take an hour at all. I actually get a little mad at myself that I do it too quickly a lot of the time because I'm like, I should have more respect for this. I shouldn't just go, yeah, I'm done.
Right.
But I look at it a lot of the time as you know what? I'll give you a great example. During a period where I was trying not to drink, okay,
Yeah.
I wanted to take a break from drinking. I'd get this fire in me. in the middle of the day. I want to go out tonight. I want to get fucked up. I want to talk to chicks, man. I would just get like this fucking demon in my eyes. Like that's all I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And that's all I could think about. I'd sit down, I'd masturbate for 10 minutes, and I'd go, I don't want to drink at all tonight. At all. I got it out of me.
That's really interesting because I was about to make like the opposite argument or the opposite scenario, which is that I feel like when you masturbate all the time, your sexual drive kind of fades. You're kind of emptying out that energy all the time, and I think that sexual energy can be useful in your relationship, obviously, if you have one,
course, yeah,
or in your in your work life. I mean, that energy can go into work. It can go into other things. You're saying if you don't drain off some of that energy, you're gonna have an explosion.
Well, not an explode. That sounds like I'm going to be running around the streets jerking off.
No,
hey, lady.
Yeah, but you know,
what I'm saying is it can be a pollutant in your mind. There's two extremes here. There's the extreme of the guy that masturbates way, way too much and then has no drive to actually meet real women, which that is absolutely a thing. I would never deny that. I agree with like some of the documentary stuff that I've seen where they say like your brain can't tell the difference between, shuffling through porn clips or browsing through porn clips and looking at women in a bar. Your brain thinks it's the same thing, so it's not good for your brain to just be able to cycle through all these porn clips whenever you feel like it. I totally agree with that. You have to have some control with it. But there's the guy on the one end of the spectrum that does way too much of that and has no drive to do anything because of that.
Yeah.
Especially something sexual, which is bad if you're in a relationship. The flip side of the coin is the like Mickey from Rocky argument, like women weaken legs, no sex, nothing before the fight. You got to drive it all into your hands, so you punch the shit out of Crete. You know what I mean? Like, that's the other extreme of it. There is a validity to both sides of that argument, but those are extreme arguments. I like to think we can all exist somewhere in between.
Sure.
Which is sometimes you masturbate and it's very helpful. Hopefully you don't do it too much.
Yeah.
And sometimes you go, you know what? I'm not going to do it right now because it's going to take away some energy and I want to be sharp. A lot of times I won't do it before a show because it'll make me hit the stage like with more drive and more fire. But then there are some times before a show where I'm like, if I don't masturbate right now, all I'm going to be thinking about is sex, and I don't want to be thinking about sex right now.
How about the idea that, and I again, that sounds good to me. I mean, that kind of like, it could be a balance. I mean, all right. I think some people are incapable, but then some people are incapable of balancing how they eat or how they drink. So
Right.
So, okay, so what about the idea that sex should be like part of intimacy or that it can heighten intimacy? And,
Well, it can. It can.
Right.
Here's my thing with the whole sexual argument. It can be all of these things. It doesn't have to be all those things. And that's the gray area that I feel like we don't ever talk about.
Well, but what about this, though? It can heighten intimacy, right?
Sure.
You wouldn't say that sex combined with love, combined with... forget love. Let's say you just start dating a girl, and the sex brings, like, closer intimacy. That to me is higher. It's a higher plane that you're working at than just jerking off into your hand to some porn star.
Of course.
Right. So why wouldn't you conserve your energy for that? Go find that woman. And one thing that's going to, anything you do that makes you more successful and happier is going to help you find that person. So if you're using your energy to clean your house, do some exercise, go and practice your profession well, whatever.
Well, why?
And I guess what I'm saying is I'm starting to think like, not saying that it's the right way, but why not explore the idea of Mickey from Rocky's point of view?
Well, you can
save it for the fights.
You can explore that point of view, but what Mickey says is no women before the fight, not no women ever. So there's a purpose and there's a time and a place. Dude, let's just be honest. Being in a monogamous relationship, you don't always want to fuck the person you're with.
Yes, I do.
You know what I mean? Like,
I am in a monogamous relationship, and I always want to fuck the person I'm with.
But you're telling me, honestly now,
Is she the only person I want to fuck in the world?
That's my point. You're telling me it
wouldn't... but the way you phrased it was different, though.
Well,
let's
that's
be
the
honest.
way I meant it. That's the way I meant it.
And I'm not worried about it. Kara can listen. That's my girlfriend. She can listen to any of this.
I wouldn't say it if I thought it was.
I'm not I'm not trying to like.
I know you're not. I know you're not.
Dissemble here. Listen, she can. I always want to have sex with her.
Sure.
Okay, always. Am I sexually attracted to other women?
That's what I was asking.
Absolutely, I am.
That's what I was asking.
Do I want to? Do I need to? And do I always want to entertain fantasies where I come to climax while thinking about them? That's not a need.
Well, none of it's a need. Sex itself isn't a need.
I mean, you could argue that sex is a need.
I think you'd have a hard time arguing.
It's definitely very hardwired into us biologically.
Yeah, but so is the yearning for a cheeseburger. You know what I mean?
I mean, okay, clearly it's not a need because nuns go without it. Priests have tons of sex, but nuns go without it, and so
it's a need until it's not a need. It's something you really want that we justify as being a need until something greater tells us no, and that's really what it is. There's the time that sex transforms in us from a need to a want is when there's a reason or a thing saying no, you can't do this right now, whether that's religion or whatever.
Yeah,
whatever is your thing is. But my point is this: is the question, in my posing that question, and I did mean the latter. I know you always want to have sex with your girlfriend. What I meant is, but you also want to have sex. You have these basic human desires. You want to have sex with other people. It's a natural thing that never kind of goes away.
Why do I have to entertain that notion to climax all the time?
You don't have, but it's not all the time.
Well, why do I have to entertain that notion to climax at all? Why not take that hour, or maybe it was only 15 minutes, and do something else with it?
Okay, well then let me reframe it. Because I can't argue that point. You're right. Yeah, fine. But do you think every time you get horny, your only outlet with that should be making love to the woman you love?
No.
You don't think there's ever a party?
Clearly, that's logistically impossible.
Well,
right?
But that's my point. Like, so I'm saying, like, you don't think there's ever a time when you're like, you know what? I'm kind of horny right now, but I don't feel like going through the whole thing. I just want to just go jerk off real quick.
Certainly, I've felt that way lots of times.
So what's wrong with it?
I think it bleeds my energy off. I think when I was a single man, it really made me less interested in going and meeting women or trying to meet women. I honestly do think it did. You know, I'm not coming down on all of this. Like, I definitely know this is better,
right?
But I'm definitely right now. I have a friend who said, he went off pornography. He really enjoyed it. He liked how it made him feel. And I'm trying to like quit things now because I've done a lot of things for a long time, enjoyed a lot of worldly pleasures. And so now I'm just trying to like kind of quit some things and see what kind of different mind state it puts me in.
Well, I can't argue anything that you're saying right now.
Can I tell you about my pornography quitting? Can I tell you what it did?
It sounds like I want you to tell me about it, but here's my thing. It sounds like you overindulged, and now you're having a reaction to that.
I wouldn't say I overindulged. I would say that I would look at pornography when I was single once a day. Is that a lot?
For some people, I don't think
what?
It's terrible.
That's a huge estimation. I would say, but it was a couple times a week. I mean, it was like 4 or 5 times a week. Once I got into a monogamous relationship, it went way down. It got to like once a week. I swear.
Okay.
And so for the last like 3 years, it's been like once a week, honestly.
Okay.
But I'm just like, why not just like stop? I feel bad that they were all molested, all of these women.
They weren't all molested.
A lot of them were.
Yeah, but I mean, a lot of comics were molested. You don't feel bad for laughing at the jokes.
It's different.
It's not different.
It is, because they're reenacting the act of their victimization, the moment of their victimization.
But why are they victim? They're not victimized. It's two consenting adults.
When you're molested, you're a victim.
I know that, Jerry.
Okay,
I'm saying when they do the porn, when two consenting adults have sex, so that's not victimization.
We'll put it this way, okay? Let's say when you were a kid, your dad was a real piece of shit. This is all hypothetical, and he put cigarettes out on your arm. And then later, when you're an adult, you keep putting hot things on yourself anytime you're mad at yourself. Okay, now let's say you had sex when you were a little kid with some people, And then when you grow up, for a living, all the time, every day, you have sex with people.
All right. But what about...
Do you see the pattern there?
Look, I can obviously see a connection. I'd be stupid to go, no. I see that connection that you're making, but to me, it's not that far different from saying somebody that was verbally abused and shunned and destroyed as a child used humor to try to deal with that and then made a profession out of being a humorist.
First of all, you're showing like tons of respect and empathy, and you're not talking down to people in the in that industry, and I think that that's really cool. And I hope that when I say the things I'm saying, that it's not construed that way either.
I hear that.
But I feel like they should get out. It feels like a bad deal.
So what should they do? Should they never have sex?
No, of course not.
Well, but then what's the difference between them having, what's the difference between, let's say worst case scenario, some girl that did get molested or abused in some way, grows up, becomes a porn star. What's the difference between her fucking in her regular life and her fucking on camera? Because a lot of porn stars make that argument. What am I going to do? Go fuck some guy I meet in a bar like every other girl out there? Why would I do that? I'll do it on this camera, in front of this camera, and I'll get paid to do it.
Right.
I mean,
there's an enormous difference, which is one is for public consumption and one is not. To say that does not change the entire reality of the act is completely obtuse. You got to see that once you put it out for public consumption, oh my God, because you're selling it. You're selling it.
Okay. You're selling it.
Yeah.
So, but the argument
that cheapens it.
But
some things are so rare that you can only have them if you are intimate with that person, or that you get to know that person.
Or if you get drunk with that person.
Well, fair enough, but you at least had to be at a certain place at a certain time.
Yeah, but the argument could be made that the productization of it makes it empowering, is what empowers it.
These people are mentally troubled people who ghettoize themselves in an industry that is perhaps unjustly ghettoized, but it's still like they are there because they have a problem. I mean, a lot of them have sex addiction.
But a lot of them don't. And that's my thing. You don't get to hear that story. That's why I tip my hat to HBO for doing documentaries where they interview these people and show life after porn. They show porn star interviews where people say, like, look, this is where they let them talk about, this is what my sex life with my boyfriend is like.
And conveniently, during those documentaries, HBO can also show the porn.
They don't really show a lot of the porn. They show a little bit.
That's the hook. It's all part of that real sex stuff.
Come on.
Real sex is always like, no, listen to me. The guys that make real sex, I'm always impressed.
I'm not talking about real sex, though.
Okay, well, can I talk about it? It's like often like the approach is, get ready for some sex. And then they show you like middle-aged people having a tantric class in like Iowa or something. You're like, good God, this is horrible. I don't want to watch this.
But what I'm talking about is legitimately related to this. They do documentaries, and they do programming where they showcase these people in a respectful light. Yeah. And they let them talk about how normal their lives really are and how they weren't molested. So we could say this right now. We could say a lot of people get molested and a lot of people go into a lot of other, quote, degrading, unquote, areas other than fucking on camera to deal with that. There's strippers. There's all kinds of other shit that people can do. Let's focus on the people that weren't molested.
That's like you build a car and the car explodes and you're like, let's focus on the cars that didn't explode.
Well, absolutely. And there have been cars that do explode.
No, the car is defective. If 50% of the cars that come off of your assembly line explode, or let's say,
so this model,
hey, try our new cereal. About half of it is made by people who were slaves.
No,
but let's focus on the non-slaves.
But you're proving my argument right now with your analogy.
How?
You're clumping all of it together into that one model of car that exploded. It's not. There are several models and brands of cars out there, and instead of going,
so there's good pornography and bad pornography, or I should always find out if the porn actor is a healthy porn actor or a mentally troubled porn actor. How
Well-
would I ever have access to that information?
How would you ever have access to knowing a car explodes until the fucking thing blows up?
Well,
or
I
gets
think there'd be a
recalled?
huge news story and there would be a recall.
Well, but you see my point. You see my point.
I don't.
You do. You can't say that this one product was damaged, therefore all the product is bad. You can't say
You
that.
can if it's 50% of the product.
You don't
and I
have-
think with porn stars, it's higher.
You don't know that. Where are you getting that number from?
Are
you getting that
I
number
did a
from?
study with the
Yeah.
Listen,
Yeah.
you can sit here and deny it, and we can go look up the numbers, but you already agreed that a lot of them have been sexually abused.
But I agree that a lot of them haven't been as well. And I also think
You wouldn't say it's the majority have been sexually abused.
I can't say the majority. I don't know.
I
honestly
want to
don't
look.
know.
I'm going to look into some studies, but I do want to tell you about what it was like to quit pornography if there's time.
There is time, but let me say this real quick before you do. I think that God damn it. I had a good point. You said the thing about how many were molested, right? You said that thing, and then I said, and then you talked about the amount of people in this industry being molested, and I talked about how this industry isn't treated fairly in the canon of other entertainment industries. And I think, honestly, that if this industry was treated with more respect and more regulation and was brought into the fold and into the party with everybody else, then maybe it wouldn't be an industry that's able in any way to exploit people that come from a bad background. Maybe it wouldn't be a trap that people that were abused fell into sometimes.
I think that's a good argument. I also think it's a little bit chicken and egg.
Chicken and egg.
Yeah, what comes first, the porn industry or the sexual abuse?
Well, I don't know. All right. Well, this is good. We have differing opinions, and that's the whole point.
Yeah. Okay. So I tried to quit porn because my buddy quit porn, and he said it was interesting. So I stopped looking at porn, but I was gonna still masturbate if I wanted to, you know.
Right.
And if women are listening to this, I just want to say something because I think sometimes women don't understand this. Men masturbate a lot. Joe and I aren't sexual deviants.
Right.
I mean, most men masturbate a
If
lot.
any woman listening to this was like, well, I don't, what? You're dumb.
I just have met women who are like, how often? And I'd be like once a day, and they were like, Jesus.
Oh, that girl's full of shit.
Well, but and I
There's-
think
they
but
all
men
know.
men are always like, oh, well, you know.
Yeah, that's a girl trying to be like, I'm a lady, mister. I don't know what you're talking about. Shut
No,
the fuck up.
there's nothing wrong with not knowing how often men
They
jerk
know
it.
is my point. What woman doesn't know how much? They've made jokes about the amount that guys jerk off in a million TV shows and movies since 1972. Everybody knows it.
Well,
Everybody knows it.
Okay, so
Sorry.
no problem. So I quit. So I quit, and I hadn't quit for very long. It was like 2 days, but I was still masturbating, and I realized that I quickly ran out of ex-girlfriends in my head. It was kind of, I don't really like celebrities to imagine celebrities.
No.
No,
Pointless.
it's pointless.
Yeah.
And then I was like, why am I, so I realized this is horrible, but this is also kind of funny, is I was talking to a woman at out at like a show, and I was trying to memorize her face because I found her sexually attractive so that I could masturbate later.
Right.
So I went from trying not to look at porn because I feel like it exploits people to producing porn, basically,
Well,
in my heart.
I'm glad you brought that up because I think that's an important point here. I've fasted from porn when I thought I'm looking at it a little too much right now. I should take a break, and started to just masturbate from memory. Sometimes memory of porn, and I don't really see what the difference is at that point. At least when speaking to the argument you posed about, you should save it up and you shouldn't watch the porn.
That was what my conclusion was from that. Rather than exploit women in my head by trying to memorize faces while I'm out walking around, I'm gonna try to stop masturbating for a while.
Right. Well, look, if you're gonna live that whole save it for the wife thing,
Yeah.
that means no masturbating. Period.
No,
not just masturbating
I
to
think
porn.
I think it's
Ever.
Yeah, I hear you.
Well,
You know how long I got though?
how are?
2 days.
Fuck you.
I
You're in
bro-
here fucking talking like you fucking have been living this life for a year
Yeah,
now.
but when you try, no, I haven't. I didn't. I don't think I implied
You're
that.
like about to hand yourself a chip. I did real well this last few years.
I got 2 days. Look, but ultimately, like, I'm gonna keep trying because I think it's like a cool idea, and I think it's the right thing to do.
I can respect that. It's not something I agree with, but I do respect it. And I would say this: don't hold it to such high a standard, man. Try to find your middle ground, and it's not the end of the world if you whack it to some porn, man.
Well, no, and I agree with that, and I also think that it's about not letting it have power over us, not letting sex have power over your life, right?
No.
Or pornography, not letting pornography have power over your life.
Yeah, not letting anything have power.
Yeah,
over
so
your life.
whether you're trying to avoid it, forbid it, or you're obsessed with it, you're doing it too much, let that go, right? Because it's not. If somebody tells me they look at pornography, I don't think that they are deficient in any way. I don't.
Well,
I'm saying for me in my life, I just want to try something different.
well, good. That's good for you, Jared. You're better than the rest of us.
That's not what I'm saying. The whole point I just made
I know,
is that
I'm
I
just
don't
kidding.
think that.
I know. I'm just kidding, man.
Yeah, it's all about. I agree. It's all about not letting it have power over you.
Yeah. All right. So don't let it have power over you. You control your dick. It's
Make
not the other
Christ
way.
the power in your life. The heavenly risen Savior.
Guys, it's Jesus that controls your
For
dick.
God so loved the
Not-
world that he
not
gave
porn.
his only begotten penis.
I actually feel bad that I just said that. It's Jesus that controls your dick. I don't
Why?
know. I don't know. Sometimes I feel bad about making religious jokes because of my upbringing.
What if Jesus was sucking a bunch of dicks?
Jesus, Jared.
What if Jesus was taking
Stop.
3 cocks in the ass?
Stop. Oddly, I do not approve of that kind of humor.
Joe, I saw you one time during a set look at the sky and scream at God, you dared him to kill you right now.
That's so different than saying Jesus was
That was a
sucking dicks.
hilarious bit.
Thank you.
How is that different from Jesus sucking dicks? Well, I don't like that I made that joke because it does imply that there's something wrong with sucking dicks, and there's
Well,
nothing wrong with sucking dicks.
No,
I was really just trying to be,
you could have said Jesus.
Provocative.
You could have said Jesus fucking a pussy. I still would have been like, no, don't make that joke.
Jesus eating pussy.
You
Think
know
about
what?
it.
You know what it is, man? You know why I get weird about jokes like that is because the older I get, the more I want to show people I respect what they believe in.
Yeah.
So it's like, if I ever make a joke or a commentary about somebody else's belief, I try to come from it as like, look, I know you believe this, so I'm going to talk about this respectfully. And I feel like there's people out there that would be so offended by that sentence that I'm like, oh, I don't want to make that joke. Like, I feel bad about it.
Yeah. No, I hear your point there. You got a good point. What if Buddha was taking it in the ass, though?
Well, he's not. Come on. He's not real.
He's not real like Jesus is.
Just kidding.
What if Thor?
I'm
Well,
just
that's
kidding.
been a movie for
We're
sure.
just going to cut this before the dick suck part.
Okay.
We'll
that's
just
fine.
cut it. We had a good ending.
Yeah.
What was the ending?
Not letting it have power over you. I think it was definitely something I said.
Yeah, just say that part again, and then we'll just take it from there. Just say, don't let porn have power over you, let Jesus. Just say that bit, and we'll just...
Yeah, the point is that, you don't want to let... The point is, you don't want to let porn have power in your life, You got to let Jesus be the most powerful thing in your life.
Jesus controls you.
Let Jesus control the world and hold it in his small childlike hands.
He does have small hands in all the pictures I've ever seen. What's your plugs, man?
My plugs are, I'll have some TV appearances coming up soon, but I don't know dates, so just watch Comedy Central, and then also check out my web series, Don't You Think? It's on YouTube. Just look for Jared Logan, Jared Logan, and it's called Don't You Think is the web series. Check that out.
That's great, guys. Jared Logan, check him out. He's really, truly one of my favorite comedians, and he's great.